What's the most famous thing that ever came out of Denmark?
Well, I know. Hans Christian Andersen.
No, bacon.
Good morning, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry. You're listening to the Two Mikes on the FA Cup warm-up. It's a special show this morning. Not only are we 1 hour early, but we've got a special guest joining us, and he's a three-time FA Cup winner. It is, of course, Chelsea, Liverpool and West Ham's Joe Cole. 53 cuts for England as well, by the way. He'll be telling us all about his experiences of the FA Cup, and we'll be looking ahead to the early game live on TalkSport at Anfield, where Liverpool take on Wolves. Plus, we'll have a tribute to John Hurt, who's died at the age of 77. Porky's claiming that he was an Everton fan. Also coming up on the show, we'll have our 1 minute moan as well. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on the TalkSport warm-up. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry. Welcome to FA Cup weekend.
Yeah, very good morning, mate.
Sorry that Everton are not involved.
Well, it's
what can you say?
It's a bitter pill to swallow, actually, when your club's not in the FA Cup, particularly when it's the fourth round.
Right.
Because, of course, it's the hope and the expectation that keeps you going to the end of the season.
Absolutely
isn't it?
right. And of course, last night the team that knocked Everton out, Leicester, very nearly went out themselves to Derby.
Yeah, they did.
Very fortunate to still be in, I think.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. But there you go. You have to grit your teeth and get on with it. Everton now next play midweek, next week, as do all the Premier League teams. And we're going to Stoke. Stoke has been a graveyard for a lot of teams over the years.
Now, we were hoping to bring you continued coverage of the women's final down at the Australian Open.
Nothing to continue.
But it's all over.
Yeah.
It's all over and done. Done and dusted.
Yeah,
so all we've got to look forward to tomorrow is Roger Federer against Rafa Nadal.
What do you mean?
Is going to be great.
All we've got to look forward to.
In terms of tennis.
I mean, that's so dismissive.
In terms of tennis.
I mean, I'd prefer it was Andy Murray who was playing, and obviously.
Yeah, well, you jinxed him earlier in the month.
I jinxed him earlier in the month.
You mean Sir Andy Murray?
Sir Andy Murray,
yes.
Yeah, but I refuse to call him that until he retires, to be honest. I'll tell you what I was going to say. How sad is it that John Hurt's died? I mean, everybody dies, but...
yeah, that's another great tribute from you.
No. What I'm saying is... Excuse me.
Are you all right?
Yeah, it's so hot in here. I've tried to cool it down. I don't know why people work in temperatures of like 28 degrees.
Are you blaming Tony Cascarino and Georgie Bingham?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
At least they finished on time this week.
Oh, why?
Sometimes they run over a bit.
No, they run over a bit, do they? Okay, yeah.
It's such a short show.
Yeah. Is it just because I'm getting a little bit older now and I'm entering early middle age that I think people are dying every day?
Well, I mean, funnily enough, I was awake when the story broke that John Hurt died. The very early hours of this morning, and people started saying, is 2017 going to be worse than 2016?
Well, who knows?
And it brought me to remember something that somebody wrote towards the end of last year.
And what was that?
I think it was on Facebook, where someone was saying, thank God 2016's over, it's probably the worst year in history. And they actually put, 1666 might have been quite bad, because that was when loads of people died from bubonic plague.
I think 1/3 of the population, actually.
Of the world.
So that was...
So, I mean, all these people that moan and groan about, 2016 was awful. I mean, let's put it in perspective.
Well, I mean, 1942 wasn't a good year either, and all that kind of stuff,
exactly.
you know what I mean?
And I think you're right, but I think also it is the point
thankful for your blessings.
That the people that we know as celebrities have been in the world as celebrities, because there's many more of them now, and you're just more conscious of it, I suppose.
That's absolutely right. But anyway, John Hurt was an Everton fan, and I have to admit, I'm holding my hands up.
Apparently a lifelong Everton fan.
A lifelong Everton fan. I have to say that wasn't in the forefront of my memory when I heard he died, but then...
Well, he's born in Chesterfield, right? So I suppose it's not a million miles from Liverpool,
Well, it's north, isn't it? And
I mean, nearest club to that would, apart from Chesterfield, would be probably, Derby or something?
Leeds United, wouldn't it?
No.
Yeah, it is.
No, Leeds are in Yorkshire.
Yeah, well Yorkshire and Derbyshire border each other. I would say Sheffield or...
Derbyshire also
Sheffield,
borders...
probably. Sheffield.
No.
Big club, Sheffield Wednesday.
I don't think so.
No, you think Derby? Okay, yeah. But anyway, look, what I was going to say is very sad because, of course, he's a tremendous actor, wasn't he? He broke through, didn't he, in playing Quentin Crisp in The Naked Civil Servant.
That's right.
And that was a portrayal of a gay man, trying to lead life in society in days when there was absolutely no enlightenment.
Well, not only that, but it was illegal technically to be a gay man.
Absolutely amazing. But it was amazing. And do you know the one I remember him in? House of Cards.
Yes.
In House of Cards, right, he went to the evil politician's country home, didn't he? And the evil politician got him absolutely bladderated, put him to bed, and then went and got his cocaine stash, and he threw away the cocaine and chopped up rat poison and put that in his cocaine bag.
Dear.
And then on the way back, of course, he knew he'd have to...
the original House of Cards you're talking about.
The original House of Cards, the one written for this country by my great friend, the author, what was his name? Used to be a politician.
Yes.
He wrote House of Cards.
Yes, I know exactly.
You know the guy I'm talking about? Yes. Yeah. And... And, of course, he knew he'd have to stop for a refresher at a service station the following day on the way home from the country. And, of course, he did. And he ingested the rat poison. And he was, I'm afraid, brown bread from that moment on.
Indeed. Thank you very much indeed for that terrific tribute.
The character, that is not John Hurt.
Yeah, we'll be talking to John Hearn, actually, who's got a very similar name.
He has, yeah.
He met him once as well, so he'll be telling
us a
little
story. He met him twice,
story.
actually.
Did he?
Met him twice. I've just had a word with John outside.
Okay. And I'll be telling you about my favourite sort of John Hearn moment as well.
Oh, will you?
I should also ask you.
That one.
What do you mean?
Well, I'm not sure it's going to change the world.
I'll tell you something else if you want to be, disputatious about these things.
Oh, yes.
There's a lot of people complaining that you haven't even put anything out on Twitter about John Hurt because you didn't even know he was dead until you got in here.
Well, no, I did, because I tell you what, you're absolutely right. I was out very early this morning and I saw a copy of the Daily Mirror, had it on its front. And as it wasn't officially announced till 3 a.m, I have to say, the Mirror production boys did not pull their socks up and get going last night.
They sell so few papers these days that they can do that.
That's very harsh.
Sorry. I mean, just because they fired me, I'm not saying.
I was going to say you used to be a loyal servant of that particular type.
I'm always a loyal servant of whoever I'm working for.
Anyway,
can I also tell you that today is a big day in my household because it is Ziggy the dog's 3rd birthday.
Well, I'm delighted,
and I'm hoping you've got something for him so that I can take it down and give it to him later.
Well,
he's actually listening to the show, so be careful what you say.
Okay. Well, I'm delighted, Ziggy. Happy birthday, my boy, and I hope you have a great day. And I hope
what have you got for him?
Well, I'll tell you after the show.
You haven't got anything, have you?
Hang on. You know, rubber bone and all this kind of stuff.
What?
Just
rubber bone?
Just wait.
You got him a rubber bone?
Just wait. Anyway, listen, I'll tell you what I want to talk to you about, because it is the FA Cup 4th round today.
It is.
Right. What it means...
is quite close to Sheffield.
Say again?
Chesterfield is quite close to Sheffield.
Thank you. So you accept that I got that right now?
No, I don't, because it's also close to Derby and Nottingham.
Yes, well, it would be, but I think you'll find most people would move towards Sheffield.
And Rotherham, in fact.
Probably Sheffield Wednesday. Nice part of the world. I
love the Peak District.
Yeah, I do as well. I love the Peak District. My friend lives there, and
which friend?
A friend of mine.
You haven't got any friends?
Yeah, she bought a house.
What's his name?
On the top of
a woman friend.
A hill in the Peak District.
Somebody you haven't told us about.
I keep getting invited up there to go for walks in the.
Does she
live
alone?
No, she doesn't. No, she lives
married?
with her lecturer husband.
Oh dear.
Yes.
It's bad news for him then if you go up there.
Well, it's going to be bad news when I get there because he's an arch lefty.
Is he?
And
so he lives in a big house in the Peak District, obviously.
I feel I have to have a discussion with him.
You see, lots of people are calling for Jeremy Corbyn's head, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
They've worked out that he's not the right man to lead the Labour Party.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how long has it taken them to work that out? Now, I tell you what I want to talk to you about.
Yeah, well, hurry up because we haven't got much time.
Yeah, I know we haven't got much time. But what do you think about the Arsene Wenger ban?
I think it's perfectly appropriate. I think it's good enough. But it's four touchline bans, right?
Yeah.
And a £25,000 fine, which is neither here nor there.
I think it's way over the top.
I don't think it's over the top.
I mean, the idea that
he admits that he was wrong. He admits that he shouldn't have done what he did.
Yeah.
And as ever, they have all these bans have to be put into context with other bans, right? And if Jose Mourinho had seen anything less than a 4-match ban, I think he'd have been kicking off about it.
Yeah, but I think the whole thing's ridiculous. I mean, to say you can't put your hands on the 4th official, get lost.
Of course you can't.
God, get
why
lost.
Do you think that's,
he's not a policeman. He's not a judge or anything like that.
There should be no physical contact between anybody from the refereeing side and anybody from the playing or management side.
When are we going to man up and say...
So it's all right to put his hands around his throat then?
No, of course it's not. Don't be ridiculous. That would be completely different. But, this is a contact sport. Passions rise high.
It's not a contact sport in the tunnel.
And
no,
listen,
excuse me. It's not a contact sport in the tunnel, which is where it happened.
Listen, you either do it properly and say 4-match stadium ban, as Jose suffered during his time at Chelsea, which, in fact, funny enough, young Joe Cole, who's coming at 11 o'clock, will be able to tell us about, and that sort of thing,
Yeah. But he was also banned from the stadium by, was it when he was with Milan, or was it with Real Madrid, when he was in the shopping laundry basket?
It was Real Madrid, wasn't it, with the eye, the finger in the eye of his opponent, Barcelona.
Oh, Villanova, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And I have to say, you either say, right, you stay out of the stadium, but I mean, this touchline ban nonsense, in many ways, I think it might even help the manager, because I totally agree. We had Eddie Jones on the show, the England Rugby Supremo.
Well, the guy with the black eye.
The guy with the black eye, the unexplained black eye. And remember, I had this conversation with him, which was illuminating and enlightening, and in fact, he praised me for it. And I said, I think coaches in any sport, Eddie, do better being, 10, 15, 20 rows up, because they see more of the game. He said, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
He said, I've no idea why football... as in soccer, managers sit on the touchline. They can only see it 2-dimensionally. I can see it 3.
Yeah.
So I think we've got to think the whole thing through about touchlines and dugouts and all that. It's ridiculous. Have you ever stood on on a touchline watching a game on a Sunday morning.
Well, I tell you, not only that, we stood on the touchline at Crystal Palace last weekend as we were walking past Everton players warming up. Do you remember?
That's right, yeah.
I took your picture there.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about this.
Why?
Because have you seen that Kodak, a very famous company who manufacture films?
Yes.
They
used to.
No, this is the whole point. They're starting to remanufacture them because they said there is definitely a demand for old-style cameras with films in them that people can take into chemists and get 25 prints.
So nobody does that anymore?
Well, I'd love to do it because
you might
told
want
me...
to, but there's nowhere to take them anymore.
Well, hang on then. In that case, you speak with forked tongue.
Why?
Because you said when you took my picture on the touchline at Palace and all the Everton players in the background were looking at me and praising me, particularly our new young boy Tom Davies, you told me...
People say his correct pronunciation is Davies, by the way, not Davies.
Davies, okay, Tom Davies.
He wasn't acknowledging you, by the way.
You only have to look at the picture to see who he
he's
was.
looking completely the opposite direction.
And you told me you were going to turn that into a cold, hard print.
Yes.
And give it to me.
A cold, hard print. Who are you? Yeah, well, that's easy enough to do. You print it out on a piece of paper.
Right, have you done this then?
No, not yet.
Why haven't you done it?
Because I'm doing it for a special occasion.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I'm going to wait long enough until you've forgotten I'm going to do it.
Right, okay.
So, you obviously still remember.
But you need a special machine to do that.
No, you don't need a special machine at all.
If you print it out on a bit of paper,
it
looks tatty and the colours don't blend. You need it done professionally.
I will have it done professionally.
Oh, will you?
Yeah.
And where will you have that done?
I will have that done in any number of different places where what they can do is take a digital image and put it onto a piece of paper which can then be framed.
Sounds
good. But it's not the same as developing and printing photographic paper and using negatives and all the rest of it. Nobody does that. You can't take that to Boots or any other chemist. You can't take it to Jessop's anymore. They've all gone out of business.
Yeah, if Kodak are producing old-style films again, they're going to produce a system whereby you can get them printed and put on into little envelopes. I've got hundreds of envelopes of pictures which detail my life at home in boxes.
Really? Why don't you bring them in? We'll have a good laugh.
Well, actually, I might. One of these days, I'm going to take a page on our new website and I'm going to put them all on there.
Yeah, right.
So people can see them, okay?
Fred has just tweeted us, by the way, to say John Hurt was not in House of Cards. And I can find no evidence that he was.
What?
John Hurt was not in House of Cards.
I thought he was the guy who got...
No.
Oh, is it somebody
else? So you
else?
got that wrong, yeah.
Oh, right. He wasn't in House of Cards then, but he... A man who looks a lot like John Hurt.
Unbelievable.
A man who looks a lot like John Hurt was in House of Cards. No, John Hurt. Actually, do you know what? I've just remembered the guy had an Irish accent. So unless John Hurt was playing an Irishman, it wasn't John Hurt.
Yeah, a fantastic tribute to John Hurt. You got the programme wrong. You got his name wrong. Apart from that, everything's cool. This is Talk Sport. This is the warm-up. We are the two mics. Of course, there will be a podcast coming up a bit later on. Liverpool Wolves kicks off at 12:30. We'll be coming to Sam Matterface up at Anfield. It's live on Talk Sport a little bit later on. Richard, Dan in Norwich says this. Hi, Mike. It's a great show. Would just like to inform you that John Hurt was, in fact, a Norwich fan, not an Everton fan.
Really?
If you don't believe me, look on the official Norwich City Football Club page.
Well, he is listed as a celebrity fan of Everton.
He's also listed as a celebrity fan of Everton, although Richie has tweeted at Mike Parry at RMG, sort of slightly poking fun at you, I think. Other famous Everton fans include Mary Queen of Scots, Galileo, Genghis Khan and Oliver Cromwell. Fact.
You know, Adolf Hitler went to Goodison.
Let's not talk about that.
No,
thanks.
but he did.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. Let's talk to John Hearn instead, because he's, of course, a man who knows an awful lot about the film business and probably knows quite a lot about John Hurt, and has also got his name almost entirely correct, apart from one letter.
That's very true. And
very good morning.
Good morning. It caused a bit of confusion when we first met. I was a young reporter about 20 years ago at a radio station, and
surely more than 20 years ago.
It might be a bit more than 20 years ago.
I said it's a porky.
Been nice to myself.
Excuse me.
And I met him, and he said to me, "Oh, well, what's your name?" I said, "John Hearn." And he just looked at me very cold-faced and said, "No, that's my name. What's your name?"
Excellent. What was that work? What was he working on at that point?
Oh, he wasn't. He was playing in a charity cricket match.
Oh, right.
He just got out, and I ran onto the pitch to interview him.
Oh, okay. Because I was looking at his career. I mean, having found that he didn't actually appear in House of Cards at all.
No.
Despite Porky's.
Do you remember the guy I'm talking about, John,
tribute.
in House of Cards? The guy who died when he inhaled the rat poison that the evil politician had given him.
It wasn't the main character, was it? It was Ian Richardson.
Yeah, but he was driving back from Ian Richardson's house, after some sort of political chicanery, and Ian Richardson replaced his cocaine with rat poison. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're talking about John Hurt.
We're not talking about him.
No, we're not.
Because whoever he is,
he's not
in
John
your
Hurt.
figment of your imagination,
Exactly.
he's not John Hurt. But
Exactly.
I was looking through his sort of TV career, and he started all kinds of things, including CSI Miami. He was in quite a few versions of Law and Order. He was in The Sopranos, which I don't remember because I've recently watched all of those. He was in The Outer Limits. He was in an incredible amount of television as well, of course, as all the movies.
Didn't he have a bit of a drink problem at some stage in his life?
For a large stage of his life.
Oh, really?
He was one of the notorious British hellraisers, along with Peter O'Toole and Richard Harris and Oliver Reed. And he once claimed he drank 7 bottles of wine a day, which is probably not quite true. But,
7 bottles of wine a day?
But he was certainly a
more than you,
big drinker.
Excuse me. I mean, that is huge. And I have to say that if he did that, then he's reached a ripe old age, hasn't he? Because those people you've just mentioned sort of fell off the perch a little sooner than John Hurt.
Well, I met him last year at a party.
Really?
At the Cannes Film Festival.
Yeah.
And he had enjoyed the hospitality, should I say, of that party.
Okay.
So
did it ever get him into trouble? Some actors' lives are over when they insult a director, isn't it? When they're drunk or...
No, because he was a really nice person.
Nice,
very, very approachable person. And,
Right.
you could just go up to him and have a chat. He didn't care. He was, he was very, very approachable in that sense. And so he kind of didn't have that aggressive attitude. He just drank because it was, it was a sociable thing to do and it was a fun thing to do.
He was a blabberator,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, of course, for a lot of younger listeners, he was kind of famous for being in a Harry Potter film. But he was all, I mean, for people of our generation, or my generation anyway, Midnight Express, The Elephant Man, and a movie called The Osterman Weekend, which is a sort of little-known Sam Peckinpah film, which ends up with loads of people getting shot.
Yes.
But it's a tremendous kind of, tense thriller.
Well, he also played Bob Champion in the film Champions.
Right.
I tell you what, I didn't realise he starred in A Man for All Seasons, the original one.
Man for All Seasons.
Yeah,
that was Paul Schofield, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was in that as well, I mean, he was just in so many things.
Yeah, he was,
And he was never not really a leading actor, apart from, in the 60s and 70s he was a leading actor for a while. But more lately, he wasn't a leading actor, but he could just play so many different characters.
Yes.
I mean, that incredibly expressive face, that wonderful, deep, rich voice. He could just turn his hand at anything, whether it was comedy, whether it was intense drama, or whether he was just narrating an animated film. He could do whatever he wanted.
Of course, he played Elephant Man.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of role an old MG could play without the makeup, you know what I mean? Because
how do you mean that? Why are you making fun of John Hurt, who's just died, age 77?
I'm not. John Hurt played it brilliantly.
I mean, apart from getting it wrong at the TV show that he was in, you're being very disrespectful.
No, I'm not. Not at all. John has just explained the man was a bon vivant, okay? He liked to drink, he liked to laugh and a shout, a cigarette and this sort of stuff, That was the sort of guy who had a life jolie. And I don't think you should get all maudlin and say, let's all weep tears with John Hurt. Let's celebrate his life.
I don't think he would want you to.
I don't think he would either.
Sad. I think he would want you to go out and celebrate everything he did.
I totally agree with you.
I'll tell you one part that he also starred in was the Alan Clark Diaries on a TV show, which you might remember from.
Well, they were full of Rogerisation,
2006.
weren't they?
You can't say that this time of the day.
I think you can.
It's a family show.
Alan Clark.
No, you
was
can't. Producer's shaking his head.
Oh, okay. We won't say it then.
Yeah.
So you saw him at a cricket match. Does that mean he had a sporting bent then? Was he? I mean, we don't know which team he supported. There's claims from Norwich and Everton, but you saw him playing cricket. Was he more of a cricket fan?
He was more of a cricket fan than a football fan.
Was he?
Yeah, as far as I know.
Yeah. Okay. And
he didn't do very well in that innings. I think he was out quite quickly in that game.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you don't have to be a great cricketer to be a cricket fan, do you? Most of us aren't. Otherwise, we'd have made a living out of it. But nice to know he had a sporting bent anyway.
It certainly is.
Yes.
John, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, John.
We've got a very, very fast show coming up. We've got Joe Cole coming on. I've got a tweet here, by the way, from D, who says, I know Mike Parry is a bit of an old git, but to call Joe Cole young Joe Cole when he is 35 is a bit much. Hashtag plank.
He's younger than me, put it that way.
Well, everyone's younger than you.
That's a bit harsh.
I mean, there's nobody in this building who's older than you.
There are.
And how about this from a couple of people on your Arsene Wenger thing? Lee says, on what planet does that silly buffoon think it's okay for a manager to push the fourth official? Clown.
Yeah, I couldn't even see the push initially. I thought, when was that? And all he did was
it was in the
basically,
tunnel.
with two hands, he pushed his arm. It's not like he pushed him over. It wasn't a Paolo Di Canio moment,
Well, the thing
was
that
it?
I find slightly irregular, right,
Yeah.
is that there wasn't, as I recall, any punishment for the time that he pushed Jose Mourinho when they were both standing very, very close to each other.
No,
in a
again,
technical area.
it was an incident which took about 2 seconds, and I think to blow it up out of all proportion.
Yeah, but if a player
start banning
was to
people,
do that on the field,
Yeah.
right, he would be red carded immediately and probably banned for at least 3 games, wouldn't he? So how is it different for a manager?
Maybe. Well,
maybe. What, you're saying if a player pushes the referee, that's okay?
No, I'm not saying that at all. Of course I'm not. You've got to keep your hands off the referee when the game's in progress because
that's what happened with Wenger.
It's part of the competition that's going on. But I mean, people row on the touchline and all that kind of stuff.
You can row.
I think it's a bit mollycoddling.
For example, it's possible for you and I to have a row throughout this entire show for 2 hours without me laying a hand on you.
Yeah.
But are you saying it's okay if I grab you round the throat while we're having a conversation?
I've already told you that. Of course,
I could quite happily do that.
Of course, I don't think that's okay, and I would never support anybody or defend anybody who tried to settle an argument with physical violence. But it wasn't physical violence.
Of course it was.
It wasn't. It was a human gesture of, go away and leave me alone or something like that. It's completely different.
Well, he's admitted he was
wrong. In my view, there's too much sensitivity about those elements in football these days, and the nanny state has now entered football in a big way.
I see. Well, here's another one from someone who says, how can you possibly say, here we go, God knows who the drongo presenter is on TalkSport, but he's just defended Wenger pushing an official as it's a contact sport. That comes from Ben. Hey?
I'm not defending him. I'm saying I think the punishment is out of all proportion, honest to God. 4 games, because, you put your hand on a fourth official's arm. That, to me,
Why are you so bothered about Wenger getting banned for 4 games, anyway?
Well, I'm not particularly bothered. I'm not an Arsenal fan, but what I'm saying is, if it happens to Wenger, it'll happen to other managers, and I think it's disproportionate, and I think it's a corruption of the spirit of the game.
Really?
Yes.
This is TalkSport. We'll be doing a 1-minute moan coming up in a little while. Joe Cole's going to be joining us as well with all his FA Cup memories and maybe some talk about Chelsea and how the rest of the Premier League is doing as well. Of course, Adrian Durham is going to be joining us a little bit later on as well. We've got live commentary of Liverpool against Wolves. Just got a couple of quick tweets to read out to you. Connor says, and I don't know whether you can concur, says the actor Porky is thinking of his Miles Anderson, who plays Roger O'Neill.
Is that really? The guy? What, is that in House of Cards?
Yeah.
It definitely is. He's a great character actor, so thank you very much indeed for putting me on the right course there.
Super Don says, you two planks totally ignored John Hurt in Alien. Probably Mike Parry never saw it. But actually, John, there's many movies that we didn't mention. Of course he was great in Alien. He was great in many films.
Didn't the revolting creature that came out of his chest stick itself on his face?
Well, it did, yeah.
Yeah,
and
that was very frightening. I hated that film. I had nightmares about that for weeks afterwards.
But at least you saw it, though.
Well, I did, but I
didn't all the way through.
I don't think I've watched it all the way through. Really? I think I left after that. I mean, because that guy then in Alien, right? He was a member of the crew of the spaceship. He was walking around for the rest of the film with that vile animal stuck on his face, wasn't he?
Well, no wonder he kept bumping into things.
Sorry,
no wonder he kept bumping into
exactly,
things.
Exactly, yeah.
This is TalkSport. We are the 2 mics on the warm-up. It's an FA Cup weekend. Of course, don't forget, coming up at 12:30 is the early game, Liverpool versus Wolves, live, of course, on TalkSport. Chelsea taking on Brentford at 3 o'clock. Lincoln Brighton also at 3 o'clock. And Spurs Wickham, which is live on TalkSport 2. Loads and loads of football all over the weekend. Got some great tweets here, Mr. Parry.
Yep.
Russ says this: revolting creature attaching itself to his face. Not quite as revolting as Parry's radio voice attaching itself to your ear hole.
That's very nice, isn't it? Thank you very much indeed for that Saturday morning, appraisal.
Here's one from Madge, who says, another enemy of Mike Parry to add to Vinnie Jones and Millwall. Venus is now after him after the Serena Sisters comment.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, but I mean, she has been the more dominant sister, hasn't she, for quite a number of years now. Although, obviously, their joint contribution to tennis will be surpassed, will
Incredible, yeah. Here's one from Rob, who says, another highly empathetic tribute by Porky that's about as subtle as a brick. In quotes, well, everyone's got to die.
Well, unfortunately, it is. And, I mean, the meet your makers stuff is something we all have to sort of face up to eventually, isn't it?
It was Eddie Jones that said he doesn't know why football managers stand on the touchline, and Porky just agreed with him, says Parry. Seems to have a slightly different recollection of that.
I think I put it to him. No, I think I prompted that.
James says, so many great performances by John Hurt, but his performance in The Field is my favourite.
The Field? What was that about?
Probably about a field, I would imagine.
Was it about American...
Could have been baseball, maybe?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah,
I think you're confusing that with that Kevin Cosner film, aren't you?
Am I? Yeah, probably. Field of Dreams. You're absolutely right.
This is just The Field. field.
But they do refer to it as the field, don't
it's not
they?
the Field of Dreams.
No,
well,
but
it
they
is the
refer to it as
baseball
the
field.
That's what I'm saying.
Well,
the diamond and all that.
Well, they also refer to it as the football field.
Yeah, they do.
Super Bowl next weekend, of course.
Yes, it is.
We'll be talking about that all the way through the week.
Oh, sorry, excuse me, I'll be in bed when that goes on.
So Nick says, it says in Liverpool Echo that John Hurt was an Evertonian.
Yes.
Probably linked to numerous clubs today. There is that, isn't there, sometimes when famous people pass on.
Well, I mean,
Some
Sylvester
people then claim
Stallone, stood on the pitch at Goodison and waved an Everton scarf. I mean, we know that happened, but we never saw John Hurt do that.
By the way, do you know that since you announced last week on our show that how happy you were that the Spurs-Everton game's been moved to a Sunday?
Yes.
There's an awful lot of Everton fans who were very unhappy because they were hoping to go to a Tony Bellew fight, I think, at some point over that weekend.
I see.
And so their whole weekend has been thrown into jeopardy. So as much as you may be very happy because you happen to live in the south, those Evertonians who will go and see the boxing are not very happy at all.
Well, I'm very sympathetic to that because the travelling fans, I have to say, the Everton travelling fans are the best in the world. They are so dedicated and they make such an effort and they're always there. And even, when we went out the FA Cup against Leicester, you thought to yourself, will they lose their morale and their will to follow their club? And yet the next game away from home was Palace, I think, wasn't it? And it was magnificent.
Yes.
Well, we had a home game, I think, with City, didn't we, 4-0? But then they still travelled down to Palace in their thousands.
Yeah, they do.
And I just have so much admiration for them.
Well, that's very nice of you.
They're just true fans.
Alex says this, a magnificent actor, have such memories watching him, and he's talking about John Hurt, of course, portray the debauched Caligula in I, Claudius. What a magnificent series. That was a great series, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Do you remember
indeed.
I, Claudius?
I do remember I, Claudius. I always confuse it with the Frankie Howard one, which I thought was funny and better.
What was that?
Up Pompeii.
Up Pompeii.
Yeah, I thought
it's got nothing to do with I, Claudius.
Well, it's the same.
Apart from the fact that it's set
all
in
about Romans, isn't it?
Rome.
Yeah. I much preferred Up Pompeii and Frankie Howard.
Well, it doesn't surprise me.
I thought I, Claudius was a little
more
bit too
up your
serious.
Intellectual street, really, isn't it?
Now, listen, I've got some...
well, never mind that. Never mind what you've got, because
What?
we've got to do something which we do every time, every Saturday show. Right?
Let's get
you
on
ready
with
for
it.
this?
Yeah.
You know what that piece of music means, don't
Yes,
you?
I do, yeah.
It means it's time for the 1 minute moan.
That's right.
Now, I can't remember the last time you won this, but I think it might have been last week.
Yes, exactly.
Which I put down to the fact that we were on location
No.
in the Legends Lounge at Crystal Palace.
9.
And somehow you managed to pip me to the post on that one. But it's
Yes.
the only one you've ever won, I think.
Yeah, well...
So it's still about 8-1 to me.
No, I don't think it is.
Are you ready with your 1 minute moan?
Yeah, I'll let you go first, though.
You'll let me go first?
I'll let you go first,
Okay,
yeah.
well, would you like to start me off?
Okay. Do we have the clock ready? I'm going to give you a countdown. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1, go!
Thank you very much indeed. My 1 minute moan, funnily enough, has got something to do with the clock because it's all about people who waste my time. There's a famous Al Pacino line in a film that I can't actually use because it uses an expletive in the middle of it. But basically, don't waste my time is what my moan is about. You know that I've been trying to get rid of my old car, right? And I made an arrangement yesterday to stay in London, therefore, so that I could see a guy who was coming to look at my car at 2 o'clock.
Yes.
He was a guy that I saw not 2 days before.
Yes.
Who said he was going to be around after 2 o'clock. He said, text me after 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'll be there and I'll take it for a little drive.
Right.
I got the car charged up. I got it insured.
Yeah.
I sat around for 3 hours, and guess what? He never turned up.
No.
And this guy, who I now realise is a complete and utter time waster, has no idea how much it costs to have me for 2 hours of my time.
Right.
And I completely wasted the afternoon, because had I known, I texted him at 1:45 and I said, is everything okay?
Yes.
Will I see you this afternoon? He didn't answer.
Yeah.
I rang him at 4 o'clock to say, is everything okay? Are you still coming? No answer at all, right?
Yeah.
He eventually texted me back at 7:30 to say he wasn't coming.
Right, okay.
Idiot.
Yeah, idiot, complete idiot. Yeah, okay. Right, okay.
Are you ready for yours?
I'm ready for mine, yeah.
Do you want me to start the clock?
Yes, please.
Do you need me to give you enough notice that I'm going to start the clock?
Just start the clock.
Start the clock.
Right, it's about litter, and I've had a moan about litter before, but this is specific litter.
This is another repeat,
the plastic
isn't it?
bottles. No, this is plastic bottles, okay? Litter is one thing. Wrappers off chocolate bars and cigarette packets and the sandwiches, that you put in those plastic things. But I am specifically now talking about bottles. We have to have a refundable deposit on bottles, and a big one. I'm suggesting £1 on every plastic bottle. I don't know what you're laughing at. £1 on every bottle will mean that that they'll take the bottles back. The bottles will be returned.
So that means the drink will cost £1.50.
If the drink costs £1.20 now, it should cost £2.20. And when you take your bottle back, you get a £1 refund off your next bottle. So that just costs £1.20. So providing you keep taking your plastic bottles back, then that will happen. I think every house now should. I mean, I don't like the recycling fad because half it doesn't work. They chuck all the stuff into. I've seen them in the morning when the lorries come. They chuck everything into the back of the same lorry anyway. So I just think it's a load of nonsense and all that. But bottles need deposits.
I'm afraid that was so awful that I've already been declared the winner by producer Ross.
Rubbish. That's nonsense.
He's already declared me the winner.
He can't have declared you the winner.
He said that was a total mess. You're all over the place. You know, what are you talking about?
He hasn't had time to digest it.
It's calling recycling a fad.
No.
It's also the most ridiculous idea you've come up with.
It's not.
Since your last ridiculous idea.
That's not ridiculous. I bet you I win the popular vote there. People will say, yeah, we're with you, Porky.
I don't think so.
People start sending me pounds for deposits on their bottles.
Well, start sending you pounds to see if you wouldn't mind emigrating somewhere else. Villa Rich says this, Porky's completely lost the plot this morning, spouting total nonsense again.
What are you on about?
Well, that's his version of your 1 minute moan.
No, I mean, how could he possibly have sent that in? I've only just finished my 1 minute moan.
Madge says your 1 minute moan MG wins, as it sounds just like my wife in terms of timekeeping.
Oh, dear me. I mean, look, just because you got it wrong and probably gave the guy the wrong address, you're now moaning didn't turn up.
He lives in my street.
And anyway, you would turn up to look at the heap of junk that you're trying to get rid of.
Because it's a bargain.
A heap of junk.
It's a bargain.
And I tell you something, I wouldn't be surprised if you had a few complaints about selling that heap of junk.
Do you know what I'm thinking of doing?
What?
I'm thinking of driving it down to your gaff and abandoning it in your underground car parks.
Oh, really? Why do you think that's funny?
Because I think that would be hilarious.
If you did, I'd pay somebody £25 to tow it away.
Well, that would work for me. Well, that would work for me. That means you're going to pay for it to be towed away.
Any time.
Well, the thing about the whole the day, right, was that the only other place I could now take it, because I don't want to. This is exactly why I don't want to put it on eBay and wait for people to come around and see it. Yeah. Because I haven't got time for that, right? So I'm going to probably take it to that place where they say they'll buy any car.
Yes.
Which I could have done yesterday afternoon.
Yes.
Because guess what? I've insured the car until Monday.
Until Monday? Yeah. Wow.
Well,
because of the big spenders.
Well, because I don't want the car.
You took out a 3-day insurance policy.
Yeah, because my insurance is now
ridiculous.
My insurance is on the car that I use as opposed to this car, right? Yeah. And so there's no point in paying insurance. Why would you, unless you're a complete mug like you? Why would you pay insurance on a car you don't use?
Well, you've got to get yourself together. Listen, I found out.
Why don't you wait until you hear the end of the story instead of interrupting me?
I thought you told the end of the story.
No, I haven't. You're not listening, are you? You are such a plank, insensitive, ghastly, ignorant, horrible.
Just get on with the story.
Well, the story is, right, so I've only insured it till Monday, because I thought by Monday this guy would have bought it, right? Yeah. But so now I won't be back in town until Tuesday, so I'll have to insure it for an extra day.
Good God.
Guess how much it was to insure it for 3 days, by the way? Have a guess.
£65.
19.
£19?
Yeah.
That's not bad.
So I would reckon for 1 day it'll be about a tenner.
I've decided I'm going to get a full-time girlfriend again.
Good luck with that.
Do you know why?
Where are you going for that?
Do you know? Eh?
Royal Society for the Blind.
Don't worry. You remember that the first Mrs. Parry list is still very active, but I just don't talk about it
some of the women on that are dead now.
No, they're not. But guess what? A new report from Canada says that if you drink...
Canada.
Canada. Yeah. If you drink too much, guess whose fault it is?
Yours.
No, it's your girlfriend's.
Is it?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, how does that explain why you drink so much? You haven't got one.
It says drinking too much, blame your other half. If you're drinking one too many glasses of wine in the evening these days, your other half is to blame.
Right.
A study has found couples influence each other's drinking over the years.
Yeah, I get accused of that.
They become drinking partners probably because they use alcohol to bond and relax together.
I get accused of that, right? I've been accused in the past of sharing a bottle of wine, thereby making it impossible for her indoors to know how much she's drinking.
Yeah, exactly,
Because if she's left alone to drink one bottle on her own, then that's okay.
But
if I drink half of it, then she doesn't know how much she's had.
The scientists suggest being married to someone who opens a bottle of wine every night makes heavy drinking seem normal and appealing.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt in that, because, when you're with somebody else, when you live with somebody, then normally you tend to do things together, don't you?
Yeah, you do, yeah.
So who are you focusing on? Your first Mrs. Perry search?
Don't worry.
I'm not worried. I'm just asking you a question.
The net is wide.
The net
is wide, yeah.
How about the 3-degree woman, Sheila Ferguson?
Sheila Ferguson? No, I've never really...
You've not met her yet, have you?
No, I've met her yet. No.
So what about her friend Sarah that you met on the plane from Mallorca?
Look, we can't get into individual personalities,
Why
can
not?
we? Well, because we can't. It's unfair.
Why don't you revisit some of the formerly married women that you used to go
No. Come on, it's a family show. We're not
they
getting
might
into
be ready
those
to leave their husbands
morals
now.
of an alley cat type
kids are
lifestyle.
Kids are all grown up. They might be looking to revitalise their lives,
Who knows? It says here, the couples who were looked at in this survey, who were mostly married or cohabiting, had been together for an average of more than 7 years when first questioned, were quizzed separately from each other to find out that they blame each other for their heavy drinking.
I think they blame each other for all sorts of things as well.
Yeah.
How about this from the Dutch Wizard on Twitter? He says, Porky's banging on about how great the Everton away fans are. What happened at Chelsea when they lost 5-0? They'd all gone after half an hour.
Well, I mean, it's a bit of a blow to have to sit there and watch your team getting pummeled, and even my spirit broke then. I left about 3 minutes before the end, I have to say, because it's a very, very low feeling when you're getting battered to that extent, believe me.
Paul says, Porky's just been listening to the speech Prince Charles made earlier this week. He said the same thing about litter.
Oh, did he?
So you nicked it from Prince
Charles?
Charles?
No, I haven't, honestly.
Low thing to do that.
It does not surprise me that Prince Charles and I think in the same way.
No, it doesn't
Great
surprise
minds
me
think
either.
alike and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, you know I've been a litter fanatic for years, but now the plastic bottle
don't hear about it anymore.
epidemic is going to kill the world.
Is that right?
It's going to be more bottles.
It's the time.
It's going to be more bottles in the oceans in 10 years' time than there are fish.
Yeah.
How about that?
Well, why don't you stop drinking so much? This is Talk Sport. Now, we've got Joe Cole coming up in this hour. He knows a little bit about winning the FA Cup, doesn't
Certainly
he?
does, 3 times.
3 times with Chelsea.
I mean, he played in the Chelsea team that was the first great Chelsea team, if you see what I mean.
Yes.
It was quite interesting, actually, because Ken Bates built Chelsea Village on the basis that he thought that would be a great revenue earner for the club.
Right.
And he did a brilliant job, Ken Bates. You know, he built a hotel, he built a couple of hotels, actually, and restaurants and that kind of stuff, and hoped to generate it into literally a great money-spinning project.
Yeah.
And I remember once, actually, the figures for Chelsea were released, and they had a debt of about £100 million or something. Right. And I was doing a show, I think it was with Al or something, and we were discussing, isn't that going to pull the club down? And Ken was actually in his car listening, so he stopped the car, pulled over, he said, that is a very serviceable debt.
Yes.
Because in those days, £100 million sounded like, it was a hell of a lot of money. But what he was saying was, because he was raising the revenues from Chelsea Village...
Well, was he not one of the first people to bring that kind of,
very much so,
financial management into football?
Very
because
much
football
so.
Up until then had been run very much on a very sort of what you might call
parochial basis.
That's right. If you didn't have any money, you couldn't do anything.
No, that's absolutely right. And he described Chelsea as the Manchester United of the South.
Right.
And what he meant by that was he meant that Manchester United were a huge money generating machine, and he was trying to turn Chelsea into that. And he did a brilliant job, Mr. Bates, because when he took the club over, you had to actually sign for a first class postage stamp.
Right.
To him personally, because the club was that broke. It was that bankrupt.
Right.
At one time, they had a manager, David Webb.
Yes, I remember David Webb.
Who had to...
Who himself did he not score the winner in the FA Cup final that
71,
Chelsea won
it?
in 71? Yeah.
The replay at Old Trafford? No, the replay at Old Trafford against Leeds.
Leeds
United.
Yes. Yeah, I remember the goal. He put it in with his shoulder.
That's right. The first game, if you remember, was on that terrible Wembley pitch, which had been churned up by the Horse of the Year competition, right? And it was all sandy and all that. So they went to the replay at Old Trafford, and David Webb scored it, I think, in the last minute, didn't he?
Yeah.
Osgood scored the other, I think. But no, David Webb came out, and things were so bad at Chelsea. Dave Webb was paid so little to manage the club. He actually was a broker and a dealer in cranes at the same time.
Is that right?
Yeah, so when the morning training had finished, he went off to some, sort of scrapyard in sort of London somewhere and was selling bit parts for cranes and all that kind of stuff. I remember him telling me about it. So from that, you have Chelsea what it is today, and now we've seen the plans unveiled for the new stadium, which again is another magnificent move forwards, because they never thought they could rebuild a stadium on that site until... absolutely top international engineers had to work out a way of, traversing a railway line and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, that was the other thing that was very fortunate, was it not, that somebody had the foresight to say, let's make the pitch something that has to be bought separately from the actual football ground, so that they couldn't move.
That was Mr. Bates's idea, but it was carried out by my friend Richard King, who became chairman of the Chelsea Pitch Owners Association.
Right.
And what he did was, because Mr. Bates was frightened that a land developer might come along, buy the stadium, and then put, £5 million flats on them. Yeah. It's a very prime site.
It's what you'd like to do, isn't it?
Sorry?
Being a sort of slum landlord.
Well,
yourself.
not at all. But it is an absolutely prime site on Fulham Road there, People always go on about the King's Road, but of course the ground's on Fulham Road.
Yes. Well, it's not a million miles from King's Road, is it?
It's parallel to it. And he came up with this idea that if you made the pitch into little squares and thousands of people owned them, that you'd have to get the rights from all those people.
Great idea.
And in fact, they had to be consulted, at length for the new stadium development anyway, and I think had a lot of influence on the fact that the stadium is staying where it was, because it would have been so difficult to extricate the Chelsea to extricate themselves from that deal involving so many people. So,
Indeed.
it's a top success story, and Joe's going to come and join us in a couple of minutes. Yes. But he was there right at the start. You know, he was a West Ham player.
I've just seen him behind the glass.
Just seen him behind the glass, I know, and he looks as fit as a fiddle.
He does indeed. We'll be asking him how he manages to keep himself in such good shape, because maybe give you a few tips.
Yeah, he's a professional footballer, and they're able to do it. I just don't have time to train these days.
No. With all that moving between your various properties and checking on the various tenants to see whether they've got a bike, whether they've got a dog, whether they've got a cat, whether they're doing anything antisocial.
It's basically propping up you to make sure my career doesn't collapse.
Right, like it did a few years ago. By the way, I've got some very good news for you.
Go on.
Despite the fact that you got John Hurt's football affiliations wrong, perhaps, I don't know if you did, do you know that he was in a video with Paul McCartney and Wings?
No, I didn't.
Let's have a listen.
It's a great song, this. It's a great McCartney song.
Take it away.
I've seen the video. Do you know, I can remember now, John Hurt drives onto the set in an E-Type.
Well, he's driving a car.
Jaguar,
I'm not sure what sort of car
I thought it was an E-Type. Yeah, I remember. This is a great song.
It is quite nice, isn't it?
Well, Paul McCartney, you know, he used to do things like, you know, when he made his first real album, which was...
do you mind if we listen to this rather than listen to you?
Yeah, but...
Do you mind?
His first album, Band on the Run.
Yeah.
He went and got a load of his showbiz mates,
I don't think
Kenny
Band on
Lynch
the Run was
that.
his first album.
No, it wasn't. His first album was McCartney.
No, but I don't think it was his first album with Wings either. Red Rose Speedway was before Band on the Run, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. RAM. R-A-M, honestly.
Red Rose Speedway.
No, RAM. It was called...
you know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Let's listen to the song.
It had a yellow cover. I know all about it.
Joe Cole's coming up next.
Switches on his radio. Take it away. Wanna hear you play till the lights go down. Down, down. Take it away. Don't you wanna stay till there's no one
This is TalkSport. We are the two mics. This is the warm-up. It's FA Cup weekend, and we've got a very, very special guest with us, and I'm very, very delighted to say it is Mr. Joe Cole. Joe, very good morning to you, and welcome.
Hello, chap.
Joe, hi, great.
I'll tell you what I'm really happy about,
right,
is I have to work with Mike Parry on a very, very regular basis. And the fact that you're here, I'm hoping is going to mean that we're not going to hear quite so much from him, and we're going to hear a little bit more from somebody else, because I struggle to keep him quiet on this show. Do you know what I mean?
That is a bit harsh. Joe, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming in. And immediately, we've hit on something which is a very, very current news story. John Hurt has died. Sadly, your father passed away not just a few months ago, and I'm very sorry about that, Joe, because I knew your dad very well and enjoyed many moments with him in a box at West Ham, having a sherbet or two, you know, when Everton were playing there. So I really do remember your father with great affection. But towards your father's end, you were at a hospital, and John Hurt was there.
Yeah, the Wellington Hospital. And just before we go, I want to mention to the staff and the nurses and everyone there, they was amazing. But John Hurt was 3 or 4 doors down, and I met his wife a few times. Lovely lady, and you know, when we was going out for a cup of tea and everything. But and I was going to go in and meet John, but it was towards the end when my dad was getting really sick, and I didn't manage to go in, and regret it now, because he was he was a legend, but his wife was such a lovely lady, and we were talking about, you know, what we was going through over a cup of tea in the hospital waiting room type thing.
Yes.
So sad news today. Yeah,
and everyone who said that they'd met him said he was a wonderful guy, and what a wonderful career he had as well. So tremendous.
He was allegedly an Everton fan, but Norwich are also claiming
radio on the way in. There's been a bit dubious,
but we'll see. But anyway, Joe, you're on a break back from America. Yeah, tell us what's going on there, please, with yourself and how you see the future of that.
Well, I'm going back out there for pre-season on Tuesday, and the season starts in March. We've moved. We need another show to discuss the American football soccer leagues, but basically we're applying for the MLS, and
because they're trying to expand the league, aren't they?
Yeah, well, they are expanding. It's big business. You could have bought a franchise for about 25 million 10, 12 years ago when Bex went over there, and now it's at least 150 million to buy in. You know, obviously it's a different...
Yeah. What's happening with his franchise? Because he was having some problems building a stadium or getting a stadium, wasn't he, in Florida?
I'm not sure. He's over the other coast in Miami, but he...
from all accounts, you hear some people say that it's going well, or some people in the media saying. So I don't know, but all I know is that there's such an appetite for football out there, and it's growing. And the kids, it seems every stadium you go to is 50-60% kids. It's a different vibe to English football.
Right. But they've tried all this before, Joe. I mean, I'm older than you, but I remember Pele going over there.
By some significant margin.
Just shut it, will you? And Beckenbauer and Bobby Moore and all that kind of stuff. And they 2 or 3 times they've tried to ignite it. Do you think this time it will ignite?
I think so. I think they've learnt from the mistakes that they've done. Where they the Americans, when they do something, they like to do it properly, and they throw lots of money at it. And that's what they did. It seems to me in the 70s, but. These guys at the MLS, now they've been doing it, that's why they're selecting cities. Every city wants an MLS team because it brings so much business.
They have big crowds, don't they,
big crowds, big business. And they're selecting it very well. They're like, so you have to go through like, what's the word? Like, they sort of, you go in there.
The process.
Yeah, you have to have the money, you have to have the academy in place.
You've got to show that you're going to be useful to the city and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Television things and that's where we are at the moment. And that was that was where our owner Bill Edwards, he's a great guy, and he's really wants it for the city of St. Petersburg. Yeah.
Right.
That's right. What would you do if a Chinese offer came along at the moment?
I'm happy where I am. You know, like I said, the pound note's not my not my god, and I'm happy. My family are really happy over there.
Really? Yeah.
We love it. I mean, this next 1 or 2 years will be. You're going to go one way. Are we going to settle there, or are we going to?
Because it depends as well, doesn't it? Where you're
going
to put your kids in school and all that. You can't just keep moving around. Can
my
you?
kids are in a fantastic school in England, and that's one of the only things that's keeping us here, because we want to stick with this school. It's just really great, but it's a great lifestyle.
Okay, well, we've talked in the past about your ambitions to maybe get into coaching in this country. So is that another consideration you've got to bring into the equation?
Yeah, that's another consideration. I mean, I'd like to start off working when I do finish playing with the younger elite players of the country. Like hopefully. Passing on my knowledge and wisdom to them at some, whether it be at a club level, international level. Yeah.
Because we see Steven Gerrard's now gone back to Liverpool. I mean, having had his time at LA Galaxy, and he's starting off as a sort of coach in the academy. You see yourself doing something like that at Chelsea, because you've been training down there, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been training down there, and they've been brilliant with me. They've been brilliant.
It was amazing the other day when I spoke to you on the phone. You said you'd just come from Cobham. You'd played 5-a-side. You were captain of one team with some kids, and John Terry was captain of the other.
No, it was JT was getting back fit, so he come over, and Ashley was over there training, ticking over.
Ashley Cole.
Blimey, Jody Morris joined in, so it was Dad's army against against the kids. Yeah, it was
we all like to go out and have a kick around, don't we? But when you're kicking around with John Terry and Ashley Cole, and was John Terry the best defender that was in the Premier League when you were playing with him?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's hard to say that, Mike, because Rio was very good, as Sol Campbell, Gallas Carvalho, players I played with. It's difficult to pin one thing, but I played most of my career alongside John, and he was a special defender. Still is. Don't be surprised if he don't get back into the Chelsea team.
Yeah, well, it was interesting, wasn't it, when there was that period when people were saying, would he go to Bournemouth, and those who knew him said, why would he want to leave Chelsea, particularly in a year like this, when it looks as though he will pick up yet another Premier League title.
I think so. I think he's got a lot to offer the game and Chelsea. I think he's. Someone like
he is Chelsea, isn't he? Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's massive. And Chelsea, I'd like to think that they're thinking of what Man United sort of done with Giggs, Scholes, and the Neville brothers. With your likes of John and
What do you think of the current Chelsea team compared to the one you played in, Joe? The first one, when you're winning titles every season.
It's difficult to compare over eras, because the game's moving so fast. Although that was only 10 years ago, it's an era change. I think the game's sped up massively over the last 10 years as well. I think they're a top side. I think the difference between the top 5 or 6 teams now at the moment is character. I think Chelsea's team, looks like it's got a bit of character, a bit of personality. I've seen them, I've watched them a lot, and I think that they've got that ability to win games when it's against them. And I felt the whole game I went to watch, and it wasn't a particularly great performance, but you always felt they were going to win.
Conte's done something brilliant, hasn't he? Because he started off the season a little bit shaky, and people thought, is this another guy coming into the Premier League who's not going to be able to get it? Some people have said that about Pep Guardiola, but he has made Chelsea into a very formidable team this season.
Yeah, I think what's benefited him is not having Europe. I know it's probably been said 1,000 times, but it's massive now. The Premier League's so competitive.
Sure. And you're such a big squad if you're in Europe as well.
He's got all week to prepare his team to get his processes of play, the patterns of play. Yeah. And
Joe,
that's
why do you think Jose failed the second time round? Now, you played under Jose. You had a very sparky relationship with Jose, but you've always said that he was the best coach you played for. Yeah. Why do you think he failed the second time?
See, I don't think he failed. I think in modern football, I think he's won. Did he win 2 trophies in 2 seasons there? The League and the League Cup.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he had a bad spell, and the club went in a different direction. I think
it seemed like something went wrong somewhere along the line off the field.
Obviously, something. I've done. For me, at football clubs, I think everyone talks about off field and is it affecting players and that. I think if you're getting results, I think that's the main thing. And I think Chelsea just stopped getting results for one reason or another. Like, obviously, I wasn't there, so I wouldn't know. But I certainly wouldn't say it was unsuccessful. I think it was less successful than the first time round. Yeah. I think Jose will always be thought of as like Chelsea's Shankly, as the starting of the
without a shadow of a doubt,
starting of the era, that, and I think in 50 years' time he'll be held in that kind of esteem by.
Do you think he'll come back for a third time?
You wouldn't
rule it out.
You wouldn't rule it out because you wouldn't have thought it'd have come back for a second time, would you? With the way football is.
Sure.
It's amazing.
And you said recently, sorry, Mike, that you think Eden Hazard might turn out to be Chelsea's greatest ever player. Yeah. Which, when considering how he played under Jose,
put myself on the line there.
It's possible. But I mean, why do you say that?
I played with him at Lille for one, and I think if you look at, I think he's probably the best number 10 in the world at the moment, like pure number 10, because maybe Messi is more of a forward than he doesn't drop as deep as Eden and things like that. So I just can't speak highly of enough of him, and I want him to stay there and really put his mark down more than what he has already at the club.
Sure. Okay. When you were introduced to Chelsea, of course none of this had happened. Ken Bates actually didn't give you the biggest welcome, did he?
No.
What did he say to you?
No, Ken Bates. He said. Welcome to the club, son.
And you came from West Ham.
Yeah. Welcome to the club, son. You'll be sitting on our bench for a few years now. And I was like, I think you'd had a few drinks, Ken. To be fair, and I had a laugh about it. I said, all right, I'll show you. And then I ended up playing close to 300 games over 7 years.
That's right.
It was at that time. It was madness. Where they're signing your Verons, your Jeremys, your Mutus, and like hundreds of players. It looked back. I saw him the other day, him and his wife, lovely people, and we had a laugh about it. Yeah.
Oh, really? Did you see him here? Because he lives in the south of France.
No, I see him he was at a Chelsea game.
Oh,
okay. To watch,
yeah, okay. He's still got that apartment, I think, hasn't he? Overlooking the ground. That's amazing. So you were at the start of it with Jose. Yeah. How was your relationship with Jose?
Yeah, it was sparky. I felt, looking back on it now, I think he saw something in me that. He could push me, and he got a response out of me every time, and that's why he's a top manager. I think a lot of people get obsessed with training methods and systems and 4-4-2, 4-3-3. I think a lot of management is knowing what gets your players going, ain't it? You know, like Ferguson was great as well, and he sort of treated me like the naughty kid, I suppose, at times, and was always digging me out and things like that, and it grated me at times. But I think looking back on it now, I played some of my best football under him.
Joe Cole is with us. We'll talk a little bit about Liverpool, making 9 changes, Mike, you're saying.
Joe.
But before we get to Liverpool, because that's another place where you did play with Roy Hodgson, which perhaps was not one of the happiest periods of your footballing career. A couple of great tweets have come in from West Ham fans. This one from Jack, who says, great to hear Joe Cole. He'd make a fantastic coach, and he's a West Ham legend. And it reminded me of a piece I read a little while ago, that there was a banner held up by Chelsea fans when Chelsea played Hull. And it was Joe Cole, one of our own. I don't know if you saw it. It was a massive banner.
Yeah, I was at the game.
And apparently some of the West Ham fans were a bit upset by that, because they were like, well, hang on a second, Joe Cole came from our academy.
It's funny. I mean, it's like being caught between a wife and a mistress, ain't it? Like I've got fond memories at both clubs.
I wouldn't listen to that with Carly, by the way.
Yeah. But it's like that, isn't it? I mean, I'm just lucky that both clubs, have taken to us.
Want to claim you as their own.
It's like I'm like I said, I'm lucky to be a footballer. I'm lucky to have experiences I've had. West Ham's a great club. Always be a big part of my life, and same as Chelsea.
Of course, you were the captain at 19 of West Ham, Joe, and I think I'm right in saying that when you got relegated, you had a the most number of points any Premiership teams had and been relegated. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's still
43?
a relegation. Yeah, that hit me hard as a young man and a young player as well. And because
But I mean, you had all the responsibility on your shoulders. You were the captain at 19. That's quite something, isn't it?
It's unusual, isn't it? But I went over to West Ham to watch a game at the Olympic Park for the first time.
What did you make of the ground, by the way?
I make of it. It is far away from the pitch. I can understand what the punters are saying because it's that. But I think it's like moving into a new home. You got to put a few pictures up, have a few barbecues, and then all of a sudden it would feel like a home. And I think West Ham's result the other day against Crystal Palace, I think will make it. We'll take it a step to making it better. And it's a great. Obviously, it was a great deal for the club. And I think helps West Ham push forward.
I think time is going to be the healer of it, isn't it?
I think so as well.
I mean, it's not helped, I suppose, by the fact that some of their results at home when they first played there just weren't very good, and it's almost seemed like they didn't like playing there in a way. But what about the Dimitri Payet situation?
That's a tough one as a player. I mean, I played with Dimitri as well over in France, and it's a tough one for him because you don't know what the thinking is. Is his wife unhappy and he really wants to go back, or has he had his head turned? I personally think he should have just played the season out,
right?
And maybe had a conversation. It should have been kept behind closed doors. I think Slaven Bilic has handled it brilliantly. Yeah, the club has. Yeah. And it's a shame. It's a shame because, like I said it the other day. I don't think the West Ham have had a world class player in his prime for a long, long time. Yeah. And that's what Dimitri is. He's nearly 30 now. Yeah. So we need to. It's just a tough situation all round.
Sure. Talking about transfers, Joe, and I'm not treading on delicate ground here. Do you ever regret leaving Chelsea and going to Liverpool when you did? Because as Mike alluded to earlier, it didn't necessarily work out for you, Liverpool.
I regret leaving Chelsea.
Right.
I don't regret going to Liverpool. It was just it was the right club, great club, but just at the wrong time. Like we've talked about it, Mike. It's I signed, one of them ones. I don't know who actually signed me. As soon as I got there 2 weeks later, the owners sold it to someone else, and they had a different policy. They wanted younger players, and my wages were deemed to be too high. Roy had a bad start.
Did Roy didn't actually sign you, so you inherited him as a manager?
He green-lighted the transfer, but not necessarily. At the time he was still courting the club to take over the job. So
I see.
The club were doing the deal from the previous regime. Yeah. And he.
And how did you get on with Roy?
I got on okay with Roy. It wasn't as far as I think he's he's an upstanding guy. He just, I think, coming from Fulham, I just felt like he just got it wrong. The club, like we was playing.
He was kind of a strange choice for Liverpool as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, at the time, he's proven himself as a manager. He's a very decent manager. There's no doubt about that. He's had a good career, but
even with England's
another matter, because it's hard to judge. There's only, if you look at it on winning things, there's only been one successful manager, and that's Alf Ramsey. Yeah. So we didn't perform for Roy with England either. I don't think I'm unfair in saying that. No. At the tournaments, I think it fell to pieces a little bit. But Liverpool, I just feel he misjudged the city, the club, and how he wanted us to play. And I think when it was becoming difficult, already the new owners wanted me out the door because of the wages.
Really? What? Really? Early on?
Early, very, very early on. You look at. You new owners coming to the game, they get influenced by other people, agents and people, and you know what I mean. And you just found yourself. Look, I was then out the team with a few injuries. Yeah, and it was just like
that terrible sending off as well, didn't you? Early on?
My only sending off in my career was on my debut, so it just and I can't really knock the people like the punters up there and my teammates and everything because everyone's stuck behind me. Just when it just wasn't working.
You told me even Everton fans would greet you in the street and say, "Hi, Joe, thanks for coming to Liverpool," and all this kind of stuff.
It was like it was a difficult place coming from London.
Sure.
It was a difficult place because of the intensity of it. The fans that's I can walk around London anonymous. Right. And ducking and diving so much, but up there it's
especially when you got your Peaky Blinders cap on.
Yeah,
you've had on this morning.
Yeah.
And as a former Liverpool player and now a 3 times FA Cup winner, do you think it's devaluing the competition when Liverpool make 9 changes today for their cup tie?
I can understand it from both. I grew up last generation where the FA Cup was bigger than the Champions League. You know, I remember watching the FA Cup was a big day, but you know, for these managers now, like especially Jurgen Klopp, he's probably thinking, you know, they need a rest. It looks like the players. You know, he's got
to worry now about dropping out the top 4, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got 7 or 8 players knocking on his door asking for a chance because the squads are so big. So I can understand why it's done. It's not ideal, but I think it's a necessity in modern day football. But it would be nice if it had the sparkle back that we all remember.
But he's taking a bit of a risk, isn't he? Because recent results...
Well, this is what happened in the last round, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then he ended up having to have a replay, which then makes it kind of pointless because he's played an extra game, which he doesn't need.
And he's had 2 bad results. He's lost to Swansea at home. They've gone out of the semi-final. They're not getting to the final of the League Cup. How many League Cup finals did you play in?
Only the one.
Only one, yeah.
We won it. But
well, that's worth winning. That's just the one that we won.
The one that we won, yeah.
Speaking of the FA Cup...
two. I lost one.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Well, you
I
forget about that one.
Yeah.
Speaking of FA Cup weekends, I mean, have you got a favourite sort of FA Cup memory that you carry with you?
Favourite FA Cup memory?
Apart from picking up the medals on a regular basis.
What, as a player or as a fan? Or
Either.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I think playing the first one at the new Wembley, coming out against Man United, lining up.
That was 1-0 in extra time,
It was a dreadful game. It was an horrible game. It was, but just, you know, new stadium. You felt like a new era for English football. And
Drogba scored, didn't he?
Drogba scored.
9 minutes.
Yeah, we you know, we didn't deserve to win that game, to be honest. But you take your luck when you can get it, and we won the cup, and it was a great.
Sure.
Talking about cup finals, Joe, is it too painful to talk to you about the Champions League final in Moscow?
That's too painful. It is. You know, that was tough. That's a tough one.
I think you told me you'd taken out your contact lenses, ready to run on the pitch
ready
and
to
jump
celebrate.
on John Terry's back.
Right.
Yeah, because I got brought off with 5 minutes to go for. I think it was Nicholas Anelka because he was a penalty taker all through his career, and that was always the plan. So, you know, you're thinking, JT, you don't know. It's in the gods, ain't it? I think with cup competitions in particular, it's whether it's written in the stars on.
So by the time you get to penalties, it's kind of anybody's guess, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And cup competition, and that was a great. If you're going to lose to a team and a club, I think Man United are a fantastic club, and that team was a special team as well. And you know, it was disappointing, but you know, you move on.
Indeed.
Sure. Well, funnily enough, we've got a couple more questions to ask you, so if you can stay with us if you don't mind. There's something that I read about the other day about a funny incident with Roman Abramovich. Just before one of the victory parades, which I will ask you about. Joe Cole is here with us. If you've got any questions for him, by all means tweet them to us at the 2 mics. We'll try and put them to him. Somebody has asked you why, if you are on Twitter, and if you're not on Twitter, you know, why don't you get on Twitter? Because you seem like a very nice man.
That's very nice, yeah. But
so we'll set you up with a Twitter account before you leave.
You don't want to do it though, do you?
Nah, it's just, I just don't know.
I don't blame you, actually.
No, I
Stay
don't blame
away
you.
from
Yeah,
it.
nothing like that.
Stay away from it.
Yeah.
That'd be my advice. This
Yeah.
is Talk Sport. Joe Cole is with us. We'll talk a little bit about Liverpool, making 9 changes there, Mike, you're saying.
Joe.
But before we get to Liverpool, because that's another place where you did play with Roy Hodgson, which perhaps was not one of the happiest periods of your footballing career. A couple of great tweets have come in from West Ham fans. This one from Jack, who says, great to hear Joe Cole. He'd make a fantastic coach, and he's a West Ham legend. And it reminded me of a piece I read a little while ago, that there was a banner held up by Chelsea fans when Chelsea played Hull. And it was Joe Cole, one of our own. I don't know if you saw it. It was a massive banner.
Yeah, I was at the game.
And apparently some of the West Ham fans were a bit upset by that because they were like, well, hang on a second, Joe Cole came from our academy.
It's funny. I mean, it's like being caught between a wife and a mistress, ain't it? You know, like I've got fond memories at both clubs.
I wouldn't listen to that with Carly, by the way.
Yeah. But it's like that, isn't it? I mean, I'm just lucky that both clubs, you know, have taken to us.
Want to claim you as their own.
It's like I'm like I said, I'm lucky to be a footballer. I'm lucky to have experiences I've had. West Ham's a great club. Always be a big part of my life, and same as Chelsea.
Of course, you were the captain at 19 of West Ham, Joe, and I think I'm right in saying that when you got relegated, you had the most number of points any Premiership teams hadn't been relegated. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's still
43?
a relegation. Yeah, that hit me hard as a young man and a young player as well, and you know.
But I mean, you had all the responsibility on your shoulders. You were the captain at 19. That's quite something, isn't it?
It's unusual, isn't it? But I went over to West Ham to watch a game at the Olympic Park for the first time.
What did you make of the ground, by the way?
I make of it is far away from the pitch. I can understand what the punters are saying because it's that, but I think it's like moving into a new home. You got to put a few pictures up, have a few barbecues, and all of a sudden it would feel like a home. And I think West Ham's result the other day against Crystal Palace, I think will make it. Yeah. We'll take it a step to making it better. And it's a great. Obviously, it was a great deal for the club. And I think helps West Ham push forward.
I think time is going to be the healer of it, isn't it?
I think so as well.
I mean, it's not helped, I suppose, by the fact that some of their results at home when they first played there just weren't very good, and it's almost seemed like they didn't like playing there in a way. But what about the Dimitri Payet situation?
That's a tough one as a player. I mean, I played with Dimitri as well over in France, and it's a tough one for him because you don't know what the thinking is. Is his wife unhappy and he really wants to go back, or has he had his head turned? You know, I personally think he should have just played the season out,
right?
You know, and maybe had a conversation. It should have been kept behind closed doors. I think Slaven Bilic has handled it brilliantly. Yeah, the club has. Yeah. And it's a shame. It's a shame because, like I said the other day, I don't think the West Ham have had a world class player in his prime for a long, long time. Yeah, and that's what Dimitri is. He's nearly 30 now. Yeah. So we need to. It's just a tough situation all round.
Sure. Talking about transfers, Joe, and I'm not treading on delicate ground here. Do you ever regret leaving Chelsea and going to Liverpool when you did? Because as Mike alluded to earlier, it didn't necessarily work out for you, Liverpool.
I regret leaving Chelsea.
Right.
I don't regret going to Liverpool. It was just it was the right club, great club, but just at the wrong time. Like we've talked about it, Mike. It's I signed. One of them ones. I don't know who actually signed me. As soon as I got there 2 weeks later, the owners sold it to someone else, and they had a different policy. They wanted younger players, and my wages were deemed to be too high. Roy had a bad start.
Did Roy didn't actually sign you, so you inherited him as a manager?
He green-lighted the transfer, but not necessarily. At the time he was still courting the club to take over the job. So
I see.
The club were doing the deal from the previous regime.
Yeah.
And he.
And how did you get on with Roy?
I got on okay with Roy. It wasn't as far as I think he's like I said, he's an upstanding guy. He just, I think, coming from Fulham, I just felt like he just got it wrong. The club, like we was playing.
He was kind of a strange choice for Liverpool as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, at the time, he's proven himself as a manager. He's a very decent manager. There's no doubt about that. He's had a good career, but
even with England's
another matter, because it's hard to judge. There's only, if you look at it on winning things, there's only been one successful manager, and that's Alf Ramsey. Yeah. So we didn't perform for Roy with England either. I don't think I'm unfair in saying that. No. At the tournaments, I think it fell to pieces a little bit. But at Liverpool, I just feel he misjudged the city, the club, and how he wanted us to play. And I think when it was becoming difficult, already the new owners wanted me out the door because of the wages.
Really? What? Really? Early on?
Early, very, very early on. You look at. You new owners coming to the game, they get influenced by other people, agents and people, and you know what I mean. And you just found yourself. Look, I was in out the team with a few injuries. Yeah. And it was just like
that terrible sending off as well, didn't you? Early on?
My only sending off in my career was on my debut, so it just and I can't really knock the people like the punters up there and my teammates and everything because everyone's stuck behind me. Just when it just wasn't working.
You told me even Everton fans would greet you in the street and say, "Hi, Joe, thanks for coming to Liverpool," and all this kind of stuff.
It was like it was a difficult place coming from London.
Sure.
It was a difficult place because of the intensity of it. The fans they that's I can walk around London anonymous.
Right.
And ducking and diving so much, but up there
especially when you got your Peaky Blinders cap on.
Yeah,
you've had on this morning.
Yeah.
And as a former Liverpool player and now a 3 times FA Cup winner, do you think it's devaluing the competition when Liverpool make 9 changes today for their cup tie?
I can understand it from both. I grew up last generation where the FA Cup was bigger than the Champions League. Right. I remember watching the FA Cup was a big day, but. For these managers now, like especially Jurgen Klopp, he's probably thinking, they need a rest. It looks like the players, he's got
to worry now about dropping out the top 4, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got 7 or 8 players knocking on his door asking for a chance because the squads are so big. So I can understand why it's done. It's not ideal, but I think it's a necessity in modern day football. But it would be nice if it had the sparkle back that we all remember.
But he's taking a bit of a risk, isn't he? Because recent results...
Well, this is what happened in the last round, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then he ended up having to have a replay, which then makes it kind of pointless because he's played an extra game, which he doesn't need.
And he's had 2 bad results. He's lost to Swansea at home. They've gone out of the semi-final. They're not getting to the final of the League Cup. How many League Cup finals did you play in?
Only the one.
Only one, yeah.
We won it. But
Well, that's worth winning. It's just the one that we won. Yeah.
The one that we won, yeah.
Speaking of the FA Cup...
Sorry, 2. I lost one.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Well, you
I
forget about that one.
Yeah.
Speaking of FA Cup weekends, I mean, have you got a favourite sort of FA Cup memory that you carry with you?
Favourite FA Cup memory?
I mean, apart from picking up the medals on a regular basis.
What, as a player or as a fan? Or
Either. Yeah. Whatever.
I think playing the first one at the new Wembley, coming out against Man United, lining up.
That was 1-0 in extra time,
It was a dreadful game. It was an horrible game. It was, but just new stadium. You felt like a new era for English football. And
Drogba scored, didn't he?
Drogba scored
9 minutes.
Yeah, we we didn't deserve to win that game, to be honest. But you take your luck when you can get it, and we won the cup, and it was a great.
Sure.
Talking about cup finals, Joe, is it too painful to talk to you about the Champions League final in Moscow?
That's too painful. It is, that was tough. That's a tough one.
I think you told me you'd taken out your contact lenses, ready to run on the pitch
ready
and
to
jump
celebrate.
on John Terry's back.
Right.
Yeah, because I got brought off with 5 minutes to go for. I think it was Nicholas Anelka because he was a penalty taker all through his career, and that was always the plan. So, you're thinking, JT, I don't know. It's in the gods, ain't it? I think with cup competitions in particular, it's whether it's written in the stars on.
Also, by the time you get to penalties, it's kind of anybody's guess, really. Isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And cup competition, and that was a great. If you're going to lose to a team and a club. I think Man United are a fantastic club, and that team was a special team as well. And it was disappointing, but you move on.
Indeed.
Sure. Well, funnily enough, we've got a couple more questions to ask you. So if you can stay with us, if you don't mind, there's something that I read about the other day about a funny incident with Roman Abramovich. Just before one of the victory parades, which I will ask you about. Joe Cole is here with us. If you've got any questions for him, by all means, tweet them to us at the 2 mics. We'll try and put them to him. Somebody has asked you why, if you are on Twitter, and if you're not on Twitter, why don't you get on Twitter? Because you seem like a very nice man.
That's very nice, yeah. But,
so we will set you up with a Twitter account before you leave.
You don't want to do it, though, do you?
No, I just don't know.
I don't blame you, actually.
No, I
Stay
don't
away
blame
from
you.
it.
Nothing like that.
Stay away from it.
Yeah.
That'd be my advice. This
Yeah.
is Talk Sport. With the 2 mics, we're here with Joe Cole, who's been telling us about his favourite FA Cup memories. Fred says this at the 2 mics. He says, thank Joe for making Holloway and Archway proud. He says, from an Islington and Kentish town gooner. Schoolboy made good. And here's one from Dean in Cheltenham, who's an Aston Villa fan. He said, I can listen to Joe all day. Gutted he wasn't given a proper chance at Villa Park. Come back now.
Absolutely.
You might be able to help them out.
You might be able to help them out, yeah. I've been to your boyhood home, Joe, when your dad and I had a stroll round, when we did a bit of work together, and it's fantastic to see where you came from. Yeah. Talking about that, Joe, now you're a father now of 3 children. You've got 2 boys. Yeah. You've been out this morning with one of your lads, doing a bit of training. What do you think would happen if in 15 years' time your boy came home and said, Dad, I've been offered 25 grand a week to join Club A, B, C or D? I mean, that's the way it's going these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
How would you react to that?
I think the lads, I think the lads coming through now, they get money thrown at them so quickly, so early, and you can't blame them for getting their heads turned because they're young lads at the end of the day.
But they haven't all got fathers like you who know what's going on.
All know. And the problem is, like I was saying, a little bit of knowledge is dangerous, and the parents of their kids, they get treated so well. They're in these lounges, they're talking to agents and all that, and they think that football's a very tricky landscape to navigate. So they need guided
as well, isn't it?
So the young players do need agents, but
it's got to be the right agent.
It's got to be the right agent. There's a lot of bad agents out there as well. So it's if my 2 boys wanted to play football, I'd be delighted. But I'd be equally delighted if they wanted to be anything they wanted
A
to
barrister.
be. Yeah,
I mean,
barrister.
this is what I was going to ask you. You're a wealthy man because you've been very successful in your profession. Will you send your boys to top English public schools or anything like that, or do you want to have a more grounded upbringing?
Oh, they'll be grounded enough just for me and my family, that's for sure. So I would like, I think like every parent, you'd love your kids to be educated well, and I think giving them a better chance in a private school, and that's not to say that there ain't great public schools, and I think, but you know, like if my kids, any of them weren't, wasn't really, I would never. I just don't want to be. You don't want to be a pushy parent, do you? That's the one thing. You know, just let them be happy, and that's the main thing.
That is the main thing. Exactly right. Let's talk about a funny story that I read the other day about you and Roman Abramovich. It was around about 2005, I suppose. A victory
Your
parade.
first Premier League title,
and you were a little bit late getting down to Cobham. And the story I heard was of you and a mate racing up to the gates in a Nissan Micra.
Yeah.
While him and his bodyguards were standing waiting. What happened?
Well, we was both a bit hungover really after the party celebration. It's all a bit blurry, but I just remember we had a little dodgy little motor that was about 5 years old. That was barely
dodgy little motor.
Presumably that was your mate's car.
Yeah. And I didn't want to be fined, so I'm just flying along. And
were you driving, or was he?
No, he was driving.
Yeah.
And I just remember flying in and just, you know, seeing Roman walk across with the bodyguards and that. And he's probably looking like, it's not often you see like a pink Corsa in a Chelsea car park doing 60 miles an hour, whatever it was. I can't even remember the car, but so that was probably alerted.
Did they think you were sort of driving at him? Were they a bit concerned?
They may have done,
I'm amazed they didn't bring the Uzi out of the right-hand pocket. You know what I mean?
I would have come unstuck there, wouldn't I?
Yeah,
absolutely.
You certainly would have. Did you ever have any contact with Mr. Abramovich? Does he connect with the players?
When I was there, he was coming down and that, and I think he still does. I think he's got a big passion for the club, and I think the fans over there as well, rightly so. You know, really appreciate what he's brought, because he's taken Chelsea up about 4 or 5 levels. And,
Well, I was saying about the Ken Bateson, I told you earlier, he started Chelsea Village. He had a vision that he was going to earn revenues and money, and that's now going to culminate. Have you seen the plans for the new Chelsea ground?
Yeah, it looks incredible, doesn't
Well,
it?
it's amazing, isn't it? You know, and to think that it's going to get to that. New grounds, by the way, are my bugbear. I don't want Goodison Park knocked down. Do you think too many grounds in this country were knocked down too soon?
I think when you see the new grounds not full, it's quite, you know, in the lower leagues it can be a bit off-putting, can't it? That shows it's not worked. But when you see the new grounds like the Emirates and that's spectacular. It's full every week, and it's a success story. So I'm with you. Like Goodison Park, it was such a tough place to play, but
was it?
It was it was fun to play.
You went up there, didn't you, as a schoolboy, and spent a couple of weeks there, and you always spoke very highly of the way they treated you. Yeah,
they did. They treated me well. All the coaching staff and everyone there. And they put me up in a place in the Golden Eagle Hotel in Kirby, and that. So which I'm told now,
the Golden Eagle.
I'm told now is a bit rough.
Probably. Yeah,
it was a lovely place when I was younger.
Some nefarious activity. Joe, a couple of questions coming in from the listeners. Wilson's asking us. We've asked you about the FA Cup, but he says, could you ask Joe what's the highlight of his career or the best moment of his career? What would that be?
I've been lucky. I've had lots of moments. I think winning the first League Cup was pretty special, because you're agitated. I was 22 and I hadn't won anything, and I was agitated.
And that was Jose's first cup as well.
Yeah, that was pretty special. And looking back, people might say, "Is that just a League Cup, a League Cup?" But to me, on that day, and all the other boys who'd never won anything, it was like, wow, we got our hands on a bit of silverware and had a party, and then that was pretty special.
Do you keep your medals and your shirts?
Yeah, not on display or anything.
No,
they're tucked away in a safe somewhere.
Don't you want to put them into a room? You know, I mean, it's a memory of your career.
Is that like? Because you like to do that, don't you? You like to keep your. He was Butlins boxing champion at the age of 6.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Not really. Just not like for any other reason other than my wife does the interior design, and I don't know if she'd be happy with shirts.
I see. Do you not have much say in that then?
Nah, I don't have much say in anything, to be honest with you.
And finally, Joe, while we've got you, just briefly on your England career. You had an outstanding England career. You scored a goal against Sweden, which is amongst the top 10 international goals of all time. Did you have a fulfilling England career? Because you've obviously said we haven't won anything since '66.
I loved every moment of playing for England. England was a massive part of my life, and
I saw you carried off on a stretcher in Croatia, wasn't it?
Yeah, got my head split open.
Yeah.
But I loved it, and I played for England for every level, and I played 56 times. when and everything. But we didn't win nothing, and I just see that maybe as something I can come back into, because I think I'd just love to see this country, if England won a tournament, a European Championship, a World Cup, just to see what you know, and that's what I miss most of playing high end football, is that opportunity of.
And would you put that above getting rid of cycle lanes in London?
No, it's a close second. I don't know. If Boris was in here now, we'd have to put him to rights.
You said you were shocked because you've been in America. You come
yeah.
back.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just sit in my car raging every time I come into London. You keep forgetting. My mind must think it's like 2000 or 99. I'll get into like Leicester Square in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
No chance. It's driving me
45
mad.
minutes to go round Leicester Square.
Yeah,
It does,
exactly,
yeah.
I mean, that's the
It
problem.
does, yeah.
Well, listen, Joe, we're out of time, unfortunately. Thank you very much for coming in.
Yeah.
Fantastic to have you here. Maybe we should do it again another
Thanks
time.
for having me.
Yeah,
Good luck
it's
going
great-
back
great to see
to
you.
Florida. You're going to get coaching qualifications there, I understand.
Yeah, well, I'm going to do my A licence over there at some point.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
Brilliant.
see you back here when you're back in
Very
town.
best of luck.
Thank you very
Brilliant.
much, guys.
And let's hope it doesn't take too long to get out of the traffic.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. The warm-up with the two mics on Talk Sport.